Hello, hello, and welcome to the Rise Up with Orion podcast. I'm so excited to have a new guest with us today. We have a fantastic expert in the world of fitness. We've got Stacy with us. Stacy's fitness journey began in 2014, and he's never looked back. He was born and raised in Dallas, Texas, and he came to Utah for school, and he never left. He's the marketing director for a media company. He consults nonprofits on the side, and he is wildly passionate about fitness. His passion led him to become a certified personal trainer and a fitness instructor, helping teens and adults on their fitness journey. Welcome, Stacy. How did I do?
That was amazing. I'm gonna need you to do that every time I enter a space.
Fantastic. I'm in. I'm in. Bring it on. We'll be a heck of a team. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for bringing your story to our podcast. I'm really excited to share it with our listeners.
Sweet. Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm really stoked to share my story a little bit and answer any questions and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously your bio touched on it a little bit, as did the podcast description as well. So what I would love is for you to dive in a little bit more to that. Why did you get into fitness? And it sounds like for you, it wasn't really an easy journey, if I dare say.
No, like many of us, it was very traumatic. I feel like sometimes the motivation into fitness can come from like very, you know, kind of intense places. And so mine was kind of like that too. I was part of a sketch comedy group. I loved it. I was performing on TV and like doing little bits on the internet that were like going viral here and there. It was really fun. I was an actor and a writer. And eventually, at one point, I get pulled aside by the producer. He's like, I would love to have a meeting. And I'm like, that's pretty routine. And we jump into a little meeting, and the producer was like, Hey, um, you're too fat. And I was like, I was like so caught off guard. I was like, this has nothing to do with my job description. I was so
Right?
surprised. Um, and essentially, he was saying that I'm getting too big for the clothes that they're purchasing for me as someone who's appearing in this show. And so it would be in my best interest to lose weight so I can fit into those
Hmm.
clothes. And I was shocked. I was completely caught off guard. Um,
Sure.
I don't know, I was doing comedy. I wasn't doing like a CW show or like that needs to have like beautiful actors or something. Um, and I immediately just was like flooded with all sorts of insecurities that were maybe more latent and some that I even know I had, and new ones just about my body, and not just, my body, but just other people noticing my body and how if I fit in spaces and fit into clothing. And so I had a friend from the show who invited me. She was like, "Oh, come work out with me if you want." And I started going to the gym with her. And truly at this point, I had probably been the biggest I had been in my life. And I was like moving around and stuff. It wasn't like I was like incapacitated by any means. But I started going to the gym, and with all these insecurities where I'm just like all of a sudden like hating myself, and
Oh,
just
yeah.
so, all those like things that come with those insecurities. I started losing weight, and I started
Hey!
dropping inches. Yeah, and my old pants fit, and I started getting a lot of attention from people. And the thing that was most interesting to me is that I didn't feel better about my body. In fact, I kind of felt worse.
Hmm.
And it was like kind
Interesting.
of like messing with my mind, where it was like, well, I was getting everything I wanted. I was like losing weight. I was putting on muscle. I was toning up. I was getting attention from people, and yet I wasn't any happier
Hmm.
about my body and myself. And so around this point, something like I was like in this thought process where I was like, what is happening? Like, what is going on? And as I dove a little deeper into myself, I feel like I unlocked like a little nugget of wisdom that I've always had. And
Hmm.
I guess essentially for me, I was realizing that I wasn't working out to look good. I was working out to like myself. I was working out to feel better about myself. And for
Hmm.
some reason, I thought that process, which I think for obvious reasons, like, oh, when I look good, I'll feel good and people will like me. Well, I looked better and I didn't feel better. And so I started shifting how I worked out. And I started working out to notice how I felt or to see what I could accomplish. And sure enough, I started liking myself a lot more. And it
Mm.
wasn't that easy, it wasn't that simple. But essentially, I started diving more and more into fitness. I started teaching cycling classes, which kicked my butt from the get go and still do. I just taught one earlier today, which is why
Yep.
I look like your friendly neighborhood cycle instructor. But I also I got became a certified personal trainer. I started getting more certifications. I started diving deeper into like the science of fitness. And along with it came this whole slew of not just science, but like emotional work and like social work and internal work. And it's kind of really shaped how I go about fitness. And all on the grounds of at the end of the day, chances are what you want is a little bit deeper than just losing weight and looking good. So
Hmm.
that's kind of my story, I guess, in a nutshell.
Oh my gosh, and I love it. And I love kind of how you worked through that journey. Is it, started out very much
Ooh,
just physical, a social influence, told me that there's a physical issue. And then come to find out it was so much more than that. And so I think that's really
so much
important for our
more.
listeners, to know that and to listen to that,
Yeah.
especially for those that are stepping on the scale and they're seeing a number that they maybe don't like, or they're looking at the size of their waist. That's not what it's all about. And so I love
Hmm.
that you shared that.
Yeah, I think the nugget of it is like, and I often working with like with my clients, it's like, what do you want? What do you really want? And if what you want is just as simple as I want to lose weight, then like great. But I am like 99.9% of the time, it goes deeper than that.
Yep.
It's,
Yep.
and I think we all know, as especially when I talk about it, it's like, well, what do I want? It's like, and I start thinking of how do I want people to feel about me? And even then, I'm already starting to be like, oh, I'm starting to uncover some stuff that's worth like
Hmm.
digging in a little deeper.
Yeah, well, and as I think about what Orion does as well, is really one of our main, values, one of our main missions is do what makes you happy. And, it is so much more than that.
Hmm.
Again, to someone it might just be I need to start a fitness journey so I can get on the ground and play with my grandkids versus, someone else's, oh, maybe I'm nearing the time that I want to have children. So again, I mean, it's just so interesting to
Mm.
dig into that.
I love that. I love that concept of like that application of like, what do you want? And it's like, do you want to
Mhm.
hang out with your grandkids? Do you want to have a healthier pregnancy or your body a
Hmm.
little stronger? I think
Yep.
that's absolutely beautiful. And like one thing I love, and like navigating a relationship with food is a journey and a
Oh,
process. And I'm not going to pretend like it isn't, but I always have to remind myself that like, am I like, am I living my life to be fit or am I trying to be fit to live my life? Like,
hmm.
is food part of like how I experience happiness and health? Or am I living my life to restrict myself? And like, it's like, no, listen, I'm trying
Eat
to
the
eat.
chocolate cake,
I'm trying
Stacy.
to
Eat the
eat.
chocolate cake.
I'm trying to party. I want to go out on the weekends and have some food. I'm like, I want to have the fun. I want the holidays where I'm spending time with family and bonding over delicious treats that are nostalgic. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
this is like the root of what, at least when I'm pushing, what I'm working for, that's at the base of it. That contributes to my happiness.
Absolutely. Do what makes you happy. You eat that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
So, Stacy, obviously, as a personal trainer and a fitness instructor, how do you share your message with your clients to
Mm.
try to bring out some of those things?
I think part of it, in one step is explaining my story. And I often am really clear with clients where I'm like, if your goal, and I know people are all different types of body types and this and that, but I'm like, if your goal is to just lose weight, like I may not be the person for you.
Mm,
Yes, that is a byproduct of what we're going to do, but I just want to dig a little deeper. And sometimes we discover that as we go. And I
hmm.
make sure they know that. And I share my story first off to say, hey, this is why my journey, and this is why this is important to me. And then as we get to know each other, we start diving into their story, especially in the realm that's like comfortable for them. But I will ask questions. And as we start working hard and we got to push and pull from somewhere else, wanting to lose weight is not enough. And sometimes, and it's not uncommon, especially in my fitness classes for people to cry. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? As we start working and digging deeper in there, like what they're fighting for is actually the chance to finally accept themselves in ways that, their mother never did, or it never felt like they were in school. It's like we're like unraveling work.
Hmm.
And so my other thing is like, I'm not a therapist, so take that to therapy too. Let's just
Yeah.
let's fight it from all the angles.
Absolutely. And I think, Stacey, by sharing your story, you're being vulnerable to them and kind of inviting them to do the same way. And I would imagine
Right.
for some people, they can't do that right away. Does it take some time?
Hmm. Oh, it definitely takes time. I think there's something magical that happens. I mean, obviously, like Brene Brown, our queen, some people might say
Hmm.
Lord and Savior.
Yeah, amen.
Brene Brown talks a lot about the beauty of leading with vulnerability and how it sets that tone. And
Mm-hmm.
especially when working out is vulnerable, letting people see your body, having a personal trainer look
Hmm.
at you is so
Yeah,
vulnerable.
right.
And
Doing
so I
things
think
that you
it's really
probably look
important.
awkward doing.
Yeah. Yes, and so I think it's really important to lead. Like, so when I'm coming to my with working with clients, of course, they need to know that I am a professional at what I do. I'm certified, but I'm not perfect. Okay. And I'm not flawless. And so we're learning and growing together. And I guess another way that we dive into that too is just like sharing my journey, how I'm still like navigating, I'm constantly navigating my relationship with food and fitness, but also like what metrics are we using to measure success?
Hmm.
Because where you put your focus is where your heart will be. So
Yep.
if the metric you're using is the scale, then that is going to live rent free in your head, right? That is going to occupy you. You're going to start using that. And we all know the scale does not tell a full story, right? It is one data point and is missing so much information. If
Hmm.
your metric is how you fit into clothing, that is a tiny blip and may not be telling the full story. But for me, with my clients, I try to move the metric to how do you feel and what can you do?
Hmm.
So, are we getting stronger? Are we increasing in our endurance? Are we measuring these, I guess, measurable outcomes? And then when it comes to how you feel, it's a little different, but it's like, how do you feel when you
Right.
work out? How do you feel before, during, after the workout, a couple days later? Like these are
Hmm.
really important metrics, I think, to help people see how, oh my gosh, I am feeling less stressed. Oh my gosh, I'm feeling so good. Like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling motivated. Did you see what I did? Because I saw what you did. Did you see what you did? Like,
Hmm.
these are metrics that are such important parts of fitness and happiness. And I think can help just redirect where we start, like, how what we're emphasizing.
Yeah. And listeners, he's not focusing on a number, he's focusing on a feeling, a word, a description, intuition, Again, I think
Hmm.
that is so
Hmm.
huge because we're such a data-driven society. The joy of this, it tells us
Hmm.
anything and everything too much all the time. So again, you're not talking about numbers all the time, which again, I think is so important.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's just a word. And I think that
Yeah,
has
and
as much value, if not more.
numbers are not bad, but I think there's
No.
balance, and we've done a lot. And I think you've hit it on the head. Like we've done a
Mhm.
lot of number focus. It's like, where's the data? Where's the science? And that stuff is super
Yep.
helpful, and we get a lot of good
Absolutely.
information from that. But we also know that life is not just numbers. Like
Hmm.
emotions are very important. The way you feel is just dramatically important. Like going into a workout, I mean, like you got to listen to your body, and that's not a number all the time. That is, like how do you feel? The way you interact in your day to day, your relationships, you can't put a number on that,
Hmm.
right? But it's like, how do you feel? And so, let's not, yeah, let's definitely, I love that focus. Let's not discredit this insanely important aspect of our reality, which is
Hmm.
the way you feel and your feelings and like all those things that come with it, your thoughts, your intuition, all that stuff's very important.
Stacey, what about the obstacles? What are the main obstacles that your clients experience when they're taking on this
Mm.
school of thought that you're trying to, work with them on?
Um, there's a lot of different obstacles, and I think initially they all come down to like internal things. I say if you ever feel like something, happiness, sadness, have people walking by, happiness, sadness, anything. I think that is your body's telling you something, and it's an indicator. And I say sometimes you need to grab that thread and just like unravel it, because once again, like we're talking, it might be a little deeper than just like I'm sad now, or what you might be experiencing is I'm feeling uncomfortable being seen, and this might be something to communicate and sit with, or we work with, whatever. But at the end of the day, some of the bigger obstacles I feel like I experience with my clients come in the realm of like motivation and, once again, like results and what those results look like. So motivation, I think some people, when I motivate as a personal trainer, like some people are more motivated by me and my expertise, and some
Mm-hmm.
people are more motivated by my personality and how I connect with them. And it's
Right.
always a combo, I think, in a form, and that's what makes you good as a personal trainer or as a teacher or as, whatever you're doing. But it can be really tricky to figure that out with clients and then work with them on those fronts. And so, yeah, like motivation. I've worked with teams, and it's like some people are motivated by competition, some people are
Sure.
very put off by competition, and that can get tricky when I'm customizing a workout for like a group of four that have very
Mhm.
different styles. But I will be honest, ultimately, I think one of the bigger things I experience um, is lack of, say, confidence. I see, like, when I see people, I feel like I could see a lot by people in their form, and I feel like, especially when I'm working with women, I notice there is a lack of confidence coming into spaces, and I think that can be broken down into different things. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, everybody, I don't know if wherever you are right now listening, do me a favor, take your shoulders and just set them back.
Mm.
How does that feel? Does that feel a little
Yeah.
weird? Does
Yeah.
that feel like you're like maybe showing off a bit or being a little cocky or doing too
Mhm.
much? That is an indicator right now that you deserve to be where you are. The space you're in is yours to own. So I tell my form all the time, I'm like, set those shoulders back. If someone looks at you, I want you to think someone's looking at you and thinking you're cocky because you
Mhm.
belong where you are. And like that in and of itself is just a sign of how the energy, sometimes our state of how we feel about ourselves can affect our form.
Mhm.
And so, like, owning yourself, having that confidence transcends so much of fitness. How you push yourself, how you adhere to form, how you recognize those results. Because we see so many people who will get great results and then beat the crap out of themselves because they're not, these like fake Instagram models that don't exist. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that
Well,
was a lot
yeah.
of
No,
rambling.
I love it. And it just reminded me. So I was helping out. So I do have a tween, almost teen, and I was helping out with their school pictures this year. And it was so fascinating that the photographer, when so many of the athletic boys got up there to take their picture, they crossed their arms and their head went up. So it was a little bit
Mm,
of the,
like,
they got the swagger,
I
they
dare
knew
you.
that they had the athletic stance. And it was so interesting to watch her do exactly what you did is drop it, guys. Drop the front because you're just having a school picture taken. So let the swagger go, and
Hmm.
let's be vulnerable in front of a camera more than anything. But it was
Mm,
so interesting that just the stance that someone came to that situation with told her so much. And as
so
a personal
much.
trainer, you're seeing that as well. And man, the
Oh.
teenagers are such an odd time
Hmm.
that it was fascinating to watch.
I feel like you see it a lot with I mean, because even this is like, this isn't exactly an open stance.
Yeah.
This is a guarded stance. This is
Yeah.
like, I'm cool, but please don't look at me.
Hmm. Yep.
This is vulnerable. And
Yeah.
I feel like I see it a lot with, especially with teen girls, and just especially they start developing and maturing,
Mhm.
they want to hide. And
Yeah.
I can't even, I'm trying to show the form, but I feel like I just look like a weirdo. But their shoulders slump forward, they cave in, and that like can really be bad for your form. And so there's a lot of like, set it back, set it back. I feel like a lot, and this is obviously like boiling it down too simply, but I feel like a lot with men, I kind of have to like show them that I know what I'm talking about, maybe break them down a little bit for
Right.
them to really trust me, which is interesting. And then I feel like with women, it's often like I have to show them that I trust that they can do what they do.
Yeah.
And like often it's like up that weight, and they're like, what? And then they do it, and they're like, and I'm like, yeah, you're amazing.
Oh.
Get those
Mhm.
shoulders down and back. Guess who deserves to be here? You.
Yep.
You don't no one, you don't owe anybody in this space is yours. Stick those. I tell people before you walk into a space, shoulders down and back, chest up, own it.
Own it. I love it.
Own it.
Yeah,
It's your
you're putting the
space. Yeah.
swagger in them. I love it.
It's your space.
So Stacey, how do you know when you've nailed it as a personal trainer, and you know
Mm.
that, that school of thought is in and they're walking into the room with their shoulders down and back? How do you
Oh,
know? How
that's
do you know that point?
nailed you can see it on people. It's sometimes the comfort level with entering the gym, because I feel like number one is like you're walking into this new space and you're like, I'm being watched and I don't belong here. And when you see people start to embody their space, oh man, oh like, and that's like maybe one of the biggest things. Get those shoulders down and back. So when people embody, I'm like, yes, you're owning your space, but also the way they life. I tell people all the time, what we do in here in this little setting of the gym is a microcosm. It's tiny. The big stuff is what happens out there. So yes, we're working on things, but like the big thing is how's life going? How are you taking on life? And
Mhm.
I see it consistently when people develop another tool to handle taking on life, whether that's managing stress, whether that's facilitating the demands of a life that could be physically demanding, whether that's prioritizing sleep or protein or whatever it might look
Yeah.
like. And you can see it on them. They are lifing in a way that works. Even the benefits they get after a workout, it's like, you can see that. And obviously, we love results. I'm not going to pretend like I don't. We love results. And whether that's your endurance is increasing, you're lifting more, we see a difference in body composition or feel that I just like those are great, beautiful results. But how you life is like what I really like to see. How are you
Yeah.
taking on? I had a client, she's actually just went to college. I had her when we started high school, and there was so much. I mean, we remember what high school was like. There's a lot happening, where you fit,
Mhm.
how you feel, how people
Mhm.
feel about you, and she was so much of this. And she was never meant to be this. We know no one was ever meant to be this. And as
Yeah.
we worked together to see her like embody that form, to see her like naturally engage her core to support her back, which sounds kind of goofy. um I eventually got to see her perform in some big like theater things in high school, and then I even see her like thriving in college. And I
Yeah.
know that like, and she said this herself, which is how I know, but like the fitness work we did has contributed to how she shows up. And that is, gosh, that gets me emotional. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love seeing you squat more. I get emotional about that too. I'm not gonna lie,
Mhm.
but to see you like life, oh, I love
Mhm.
it. So I don't know. It can look different on people, but you see it.
Yeah. This is probably an obvious answer, but I'm going to leave it to you to be obvious. I would imagine this is not a linear path for people.
Mm-mm.
You don't
No,
always life well,
no,
and you don't often, not always are your shoulders back and down.
no. I think I say to my clients, I say to my classes, why we are on this beautiful earth that has these beautiful cycles of spring and growth, and summer with the party where you kind of reaping what you
Mhm.
sow, where fall where things slow down, and winter where you just might need to take it slow. I'm like,
Mhm.
who do we think we are to think that we exist in this space of nature that's always supposed to be going up? That's called
Mhm.
burnout. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
so I'm like, let your body have cycles like the earth. Maybe the winter's coming, the holidays are coming, and this intensity that we've been maintaining, it's time for it to slow down. Maybe we need
Mhm.
to take a breather. Maybe we need to worry less about the food we're eating and just like connect. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because there are
Mhm.
cycles, and I know we feel it too. And even when it comes to like working with women, when it comes to when it like our energy levels, your energy levels when you're
Mhm.
lifting, that can be very much tied to your cycles, you know what
Mhm.
I mean, and hormones. And
Yep.
so that is where the beauty of really respecting your feel, like how you feel and where you are, comes in. And that can take some time, and that can take a lot of check-ins. And sometimes we have moments where we like, ooh, we
Mhm.
let's take it easy. We need to prioritize sleep and rest. But yes, for sure. It is about cycles. And so when the clients show up, I'm often like, all right, how we feeling today? Where are we at? Are we ready to go crazy? Are we checking in? And sometimes they're like, you know what? I'm wrecked. And that is a day where we stretch, you
Yeah,
know?
I am here. That's about all I
Yeah.
got.
So respect the cycle that your body goes through. And it may not be like perfectly in line with the seasons of Earth, but whether those cycles are happening on a month-to-month basis or in, 3-month cycles. We're all different. And so I tell
Mhm.
people all the time, you're coach number one, your body's coach number one, I'm coach number two. What I tell you always comes after you checking in with your body.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Exactly. Well, if I dare say that most people's New Year's resolutions are busted by now. It's some crazy percentage, it's like 75% their New Year's resolutions fail by the third week of January.
Is that
So I'm
really,
sure as a
are those the
personal
stats?
trainer, how do you navigate that? Where people are like, well, I started out strong, but it's not for me.
Yes. Part of it, I think, is realistic goals, right? And realistic goal does not mean like I can do that. Sorry, the phone's ringing. This is not my office, so I'm not gonna mess with that.
Let it ring.
But essentially, yeah, let it ring. So that's a life lesson. Sometimes you gotta let it ring and call them
Hmm.
back. But essentially, it's like realistic goals. I have to sit down with clients a lot, and often I'll be like, "All right, let me know your goals," and then we sit down and we're like, "What is your life like, and is it realistic? If you are a mother of 4 kids, and that you have to make all these meals and cater to this, to be like doing your own specific." I'm like, we got to get realistic with these, not because you can't do it, but mainly for like success reasons. Like let's give ourselves something we can hit. And other than that, I'm like, guess what? Like goals aren't going anywhere.
Hmm.
They're not going. Like, listen, you don't. What's your timeline? Do you have two months and like, oops, got no. And I also feel like that's why I'm here. Part of the reason is like, let me outsource some of that to me.
Hmm.
Like, let me help and work with you on accountability. So I guess there's like a couple different factors, but I'm so much in the school of thought of like, we're working on like life trajectory, life patterns. I'm not worried too much about 3 month, 6 month goals, especially as a way of something that we can't like adjust and work through. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Um, so kind of nearing the end here, but I do have another question that we didn't really talk about is,
Of
what
course.
about these individuals or listeners of our podcast who have hesitated to get started in this realm of fitness or have hesitated to get
Mm,
started with the personal trainer? Maybe it's because of their own vulnerabilities they haven't wanted to share or their lack of confidence or fears. What
hmm.
what would you suggest for maybe some people that are hesitating to take that first step into fitness to improve whatever aspect of their life they may want?
Yo, that's such a good question. And I'm not even going to pretend like I have all the answers or any answers because you know what? We're like figuring this out together. But that is such a real question. And we've all been there, me
Hmm.
especially. I have like 3 projects that I'm like, I just got to get them started. And one of the concepts that I love is the cliff jumping principle. Um, and no one's heard this because I made it up. So if someone's like, "What? No, I made it up." But have you ever been cliff jumping? Just off the cuff, right?
I have not. I jumped out of an airplane once, but I mean, it's probably the closest thing.
That is harder than cliff jumping.
Why?
Wait,
I don't know, but it was fun.
okay, wait, you like skydiving?
Yes,
Amazing! I love that you're like never
true.
cliff jumped. I just
You
jumped out
know,
of a plane.
right?
Oh my
I don't know.
gosh. Well, I think you're probably going to relate to this way better than like, someone who just cliff jumped. But I was in Hawaii once and it was like my first experience like cliff jumping, and we hiked to this beautiful waterfall and there's like jungle and it's gorgeous. And then we get to the waterfall, and then there's this like incredibly steep climb to get to the top of this 40-foot waterfall, which is, it's not the 4,000 feet you jumped from.
Yeah,
That's
well,
wild. Yeah, I was like, it's wild. That's like such a boss move. But you
someone
get to
pushed
the
me off.
top.
It's fine.
That's the real key. Have someone push you.
Yeah.
No, but you get to the top of this waterfall. And I remember like the closer I got to the edge, the more I was like, the fears. I was like, I'm gonna die. Like everything
Yep.
biologically and primitively in me is like, do not do this. I look over the edge, stomach drops into my butt. I'm
Yep.
like, I'm like, everything looks so small. But this is the thing about cliff jumping, right? Is all you have to do is put your energy into that first step. You put like there's A through Z that you can do. Okay. Don't worry about B through Z. Just A, just take the step. Because with cliff jumping, you take the step, gravity is going to do the rest.
Hmm.
And so you can stress and worry about B through Z, but at the end of the day, that's going to happen, right?
Hmm.
So A is like take all that energy you're putting in, like you're thinking if you're like I'm going to go work out, but what am I going to do in 2 months? Don't worry about 2 months. Don't worry about B through Z, through all those other things. Just put your energy into that step. And what that might look like is just texting a personal trainer. That just put your energy into like, I'm curious. And what you might find is that ball just might start rolling on its own. Gravity's
Hmm.
going to do the rest. Put that energy into the A, and that might look like, hey, telling your friend, like, I kind of want to go to the gym with you. Or, reaching out. It's just, or walking into the gym. I tell clients sometimes, I'm like, you know what? Check in with your body, but always go to the gym. And if that's walking into the gym, looking around and going home, maybe that's what we
Hmm.
do. But just take that step. Take that step, And so I don't know. There's a lot of different things, but I'm like, if you put that energy into A, take all that energy out of B through Z and put it all into A to help that first step. Getting that ball rolling, gravity can sometimes just do the rest. And most of the time it does. It leads you to new areas. I
Absolutely.
don't
I
know if
know
that's
we've talked
helpful.
about, some what they sound like very silly examples of that on our podcast before. Like you're not just going to floss one tooth. Well, maybe you are,
No.
but you're likely going to keep going. Are you going to do one sit up? Maybe, but you could do so many more than that. And typically we do. We're not going to stop at one.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I love that you're saying, just take that first step, that one tooth, that one sit up,
Mm-hmm.
you know, eat that one Brussels sprout.
Yeah.
You never know. You
And
never
there's
know. So,
times, and I tell you, like, we're just, especially in this day and age, we grabbed our phone earlier and it's like, we want those results. We want to see it now. But the name of the game is consistency. And one day you will look back and be so surprised. So I lived in Brazil for a couple of years. I was there for a little religious trip. And at one point, there's like this mountain that we were going to go do lunch on top of. And it was steep. And I remember walking up this mountain. It was actually in a favela, Brazil, which is like the very lower income, dangerous. There were like people doing drugs on the sides, and there's like these rabid, mangy looking dogs, and there was like trash all in the it was just like it felt like a harsh hike, like walk up this steep road. But it's crazy because I remember getting to the top. We finally got to, that's my biggest motivation, food. I was like, we got to food. I was like so excited. But I
mhm.
looked back over where we just come and I couldn't see any of the crap in the street. I couldn't see any of the poop in the road, the mangy dogs, the crazy things that were happening in the dark corners. All I saw was the most beautiful view of trees leading out into the ocean and these colorful rooftops.
Mhm.
And so much, I think we can make assessments about our journey from where we are in this moment. We look down and we're like, yeah, this is the worst. But what's going to happen, especially with consistency, is one day you're going to look back and you're going to not see all that crap. You're just going to be
Mhm.
like, look at how far I've come. And when it comes
Right.
to fitness and health, we know the name of the game is consistent habits. And those we're gonna have seasons where some of those habits will fall off and then we pick back up. But you know what? The trajectory I tend to love as a personal trainer and as someone who loves fitness is this. I want this. I want you to give
Mhm.
yourself, be okay with some of these valleys. Because every time we go up a little bit more. And you look back and you're like, oh, progress. I love.
Right.
So
And
yeah.
Stacey, you probably look back at your journey, look back at, those moments when that producer came up to you and said, "Hey, pal, we need you to fit in these clothes." And I'm sure you realize how much work you've put in.
I look back and I honestly, honest to goodness, I feel sorry for him.
Mm,
I look back and I realize the concerns that people had with my body were concerns that they had with their bodies because we do this lovely thing called projecting. You know what I mean?
mhm, mhm,
And I look back and I was just like, this was never about me. And yeah, I got a lot of good out of this and I had some hard times. But at the end of the day, I have like learned so much. And I appreciate that so much. But
mhm.
yeah, I look back and I'm like, I've grown and it was in a way that looked different. And you know what, the thing that was, I guess, most surprising that really made me dive into this a little bit more is I lost so much weight that they had to buy new clothes for me anyways.
So he
And
was mad about that too.
they were thrilled. And that's when I was like, oh, this was never about the money. This was about
Mhm.
having a fat guy on your show. And I
Yep.
was like, that's first I was like, that's kind of gross. But second, I was like, this isn't about me. This is about you. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get I'm gonna learn what I can and take care of myself and people around me. But yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
talk
So
about turning the tables over. I love
I
it.
turn the
So,
tables.
Stacy, as kind of a closing, obviously you're so inspirational. You are saying all of the things to get our listeners excited, in finding fitness for themselves, for their mind, body, heart, you name it. So, Stacy, how can people continue the conversation with you? Whether it be through
Oh,
social media or your gym or however
mhm.
you would like to open the door for us.
I love talking fitness. You can find I'm kind of chaotic and I still do a lot of like my brand online, if you'd say, is very authentic. It's very comedic and authentic. And so you can find me on social media under Stacy Harkey on Instagram. But I teach fitness classes here in Utah. I just had an app launch go out. It's called We Gym. It's part of a fitness brand that I love, and they are have a lot of my philosophy on fitness, where it's like, so we just launched like last week, so the timing is amazing. So if you don't live in Utah and you want to see more, you can find me on WeGym, some of my workouts there. And if you do live in Utah, you can find me at the Provo Recreation Center or the Springville Recreation Center, or I personal train all throughout the valley and between Salt Lake and Provo. So there's a lot of different ways to reach out. And if you do want to reach out and chat, I'm pretty good at getting back to people. I'm not fast, but I'll always get back on, especially Instagram. So yeah,
Not about the speed, it's about the intention.
there it is.
Well, thank you so much. I'm sure I will circle back. I'm not going to leave you alone on this podcast. I'm sure we'll find another reason to bring your expertise to the podcast. So I
Sweet.
hope you'll accept the invitation in the future. But thank you so much for taking the time today with myself and our listeners, and your presence is valued.
Oh, thanks so much, Tara. This has been really fun. It's been cool, like hearing your philosophy. I love it. Good stuff.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Stacy, and thank you to our listeners. We will pop back to a new podcast next month. Thanks so much.